So today we're doing Valla, one of the premier A-move heroes. Now, the reason I've hesitated to do heroes like Valla and Li Ming are because there's a lot of people that go certain builds and they swear that it's better. They don't know why it's better. They just think that it's better. Valla very much has multiple builds. They've made a lot of tweaks, a lot of changes. There's still one build that is far more consistent and has far more viability in most games. That's not to say that some of these builds aren't good. It's just that if you're running Caltrops build every game, you're hurting yourself. You don't know that you're doing it because it still looks good and you're still putting up numbers, which you should as Valla. But I want to talk about the primary build you should be running most of the time, then some consideration for the other builds on when to pick those. Because with Valla, she is the ultimate auto attack hero. You can A-move like crazy. Because of that, a lot of people are like, I'm going full auto attack. And in certain instances, that's really good. Against the Nubarek, for instance, he hates auto attack heroes. Against the Johanna, not so great. Against the Garrosh, probably not. You need some burst damage mixed in. Versus different heroes, you need to find different ways to think about this. If you blindly go the same build every game, you're doing it wrong. You could say that about every hero, but you have to put some thought into your builds here. Valla is listed as an easy hero. If you're coming over from another MOBA, super easy hero to pick up. She has a Q, which is single target damage that will bounce a couple of times. Your AoE multi-shot, pretty easy, cone out in front of you. And your Vault. The most important thing about Vault is not only is it mobility, but it also means that your next basic attack within 2 seconds deals increased damage based on how many stacks of hatred, which of course stacks up to 10. That's important because there's going to be multiple things you want to consider when using your Vault. Am I getting burst damage? Do I need to get 1 or 2 more autos in before I E to finish a target? Those are things that you have to do with hatred. With hatred, because you get extra attack damage and movement speed, it's very critical to make sure that you use that to stay on top of targets, to keep your hatred up. If it means just auto-attacking a sidewall one time, not just killing it till it's dead, but auto a sidewall, walk backwards, and then move forward. Keeping your hatred up can be the difference between life and death or kills or not kills. Because of that, hatred is something we're going to focus on throughout the build, but also using your Vault as well. Now, for all intents and purposes, if you're on Battlefield of Eternity, you should almost always go Q build. There are very few times where if your team drafted a whole bunch of PvE damage and you went with a Raynor that went PvE and you have an Artanis that went PvE, you might need a little more teamfight damage. And while your level 4 talent does give you more single target burst, I would caution you to go back to the build that I'm talking about. Again, don't blindly do stuff. If you go full PvE on 2 to 3 heroes, good luck in a team fight. You're going to be like, oh man, we should have won that. We had so much race. And you might win because of race because the other team doesn't know how to fight. But let's talk about this. Hot Pursuit. This is the talent. This is the talent that you want. Why? Because the movement speed bonus is increased and you get mana back, which means that you can rotate your abilities much easier. Now, this is nowhere near as sexy as some of the other picks. Caltrops, I get more cooldown reduction, which, by the way, I've been saying for 2 years they needed to make some type of mana reduction on completion. They finally did that, and Caltrops can be good. If I'm going against several dive heroes that are coming against me, Caltrops can help me peel, can help me do a lot. But because they lowered the cooldown on this, it means more frequency to get those crit shots that I was talking about on your hatred, which is, you know, when I use my Vault with my hatred, it means I get bigger or more crits more frequently. So this is viable in a lot of situations. I actually do think this is a pretty good talent for all intents and purposes. However, Hot Pursuit gives me the ability to track down targets. It gives me the ability to dodge skill shots, which as Valla should be your first consideration. Most of the time, we don't have the luxury of a coordinated team that's going to keep me alive, and so I have to also take care of myself. If I die, trust me, if you've played Valla, you know that's not too hard to do. They did buff her health in the last buff with all of these changes, but still, auto attack or your movement speed is very good. It's very crucial. It goes from 10 to 20% bonus movement speed, which makes it a lot. And you get mana back per second, which means you can stay in a fight for a very long time. If you are fighting fast or you're fighting against a pretty heavy dive team, Caltrops is a very good backup. I think at level 1, it's probably the most forgiving one, although Hot Pursuit should be the one you consider a lot of the times. If I'm on open maps, I love Hot Pursuit. Like Hanamura, good luck running after me. Caltrops, if there's a dive hero coming at me, I can actually vault through the target, dropping caltrops to hit them with potentially 2 to 3 of them, depending on their movement. So you always have to consider that with your caltrops, because they do a little bit of damage, but it's mostly about the slow. But you get the increased crit. So caltrops, I think, is a very good plan B, but you have to consider hot pursuit most of the time. If I'm in normal standoff fights, then I'm going to go hot pursuit. If I know that I'm going to be on a map where I can caltrops a lot, I can vault a lot, which for a lot of you out there that are watching this video, that's like, I can do that everywhere. I can do that every game. I get it. The appeal is there, but I'm not sure that this is the one that you want a lot of the time. You can use this on Brax's holdout, or you can use this on Brax's holdout depending on the enemy team and how much you want to move and dodge. Your most common uses are going to be auto attacks. Everything else is kind of meh. At level 4, well, JHow, look, man, Creed of the Hunter says that I get extra attack speed and therefore I get more damage. By the way, if I auto attack a bunch of heroes, I get more damage here. This is not as good as you think it is. Is it bad? How could it possibly be bad? It does more damage and gives me more attack speed. That doesn't necessarily make it better. There is some value, right, if I want to go caltrops into Creed of the Hunter into Death Dealer, right? That's the hotness right now. It's been the hotness since they buffed it. It does have effectiveness. However, I want to direct your attention towards something that seems to be a little better. If I'm going against an AoE healer, I might spec into single target damage. This is single target damage. But as Valla, I've got to remember that my multi-shot is actually a tremendous amount of damage if I spec into it just a little bit. 172 damage is not a lot. Siphoning Arrow, 140 damage, if it hits one target and goes somewhere else, is not a lot. But when I start looking at a lot of these teams, punishment becomes a lot better. Against heavy AoE healers, maybe I don't want this. If I have no AoE damage on my team and I went double auto attackers, you best believe I'm going punishment. Why? Because I get each stack of damage increases the damage of multi, or each stack of hatred increases the damage of multi-shot. This is a lot of damage, and I'm going to explain why it's more damage in the next talent. So each stack of hatred gives you multi-shot damage, which that's 40% more damage, which means that you can now use this on a pretty generous cooldown of 12 seconds. It's not super short, but it's guaranteed AoE damage for a large portion of the game, and you're going to continue to A move and keep your hatred up. Creed of the Hunter does give you more single target damage, but going back to the earlier point that if I'm going against a lot of blinds, if I'm going against a lot of that, if I'm going against tanks that have block like an ETC, I'm not getting much value out of that. So if there's block party, probably not. Even then, 25 armor is pretty tough. Johanna tough. Garrosh, I want to do more burst damage than poke damage because I get through the armor instantly as opposed to over the next 2 to 3 seconds of value that I'm going to get there. Again, each situation can be different, but stop thinking that this is the number one. I actually don't mind Q build, even if you went something at level 1. On certain maps, you're going to need a lot of blow up damage. If I'm going against a Genji, if I'm going against an Illidan, if I'm going against somebody that, or if I'm like the primary damage dealer, Q build has never been bad. It actually does a lot of damage. I do think there's a place for this as a primary damage over these two, and it's not just Battlefield of Eternity. Again, this is kind of hard to get into the nuances because all of her talents are so good, and her kit is so good. It's just her, if she had more health, she'd be the most broken hero in the game. So they balance around that. Punishment is very good for AoE burst damage as well as dealing a lot of damage to the enemy team, and we're going to continue to go into that. Creed of the Hunter and Siphoning Arrow, I think, should be plans B most of the time, plan A some of the time. You really got to consider hot pursuit and punishment. This is the OG build that's been around for a long time. Now, the reason we want to talk about multi-shot is because at level 7, there's a huge appeal for repeating arrow. This gives you more single target damage that you might not have. This gives you that single target to get there. Plus, if you're going Q build, that's the obvious pick. Death Dealer, again, Death Dealer at one point was kind of a meme talent. Then people realized you could get value. If you don't get any reset value on this and you didn't go caltrops, which I'm not advocating, that's the reason to go it, this is kind of a meh talent. Arsenal, however, gives you a lot more. Each enemy hero hit by a grenade reduces the cooldown of multi-shot by 2 seconds. Oh, by the way, we're buffing it through punishment. So we're going to get that 12-second cooldown now reduced because I'm now launching grenades. So 3 grenades that go out now give me a lot shorter cooldown on my W, which means a lot of damage. The entire time, I'm keeping my hatred up because I'm auto-attacking, right? Then I have basically a potential 6-second cooldown on my multi-shot, 8 seconds, 10 seconds at minimum, 8 seconds, okay. It's very easy to hit 3 people with your multi-shot, very easy to hit 2 people at worst. 1 person means you're probably trying to kill the tank. So now I have a pretty decent cooldown reduction, plus I'm doing more burst damage. So because of that, I now have burst damage on my W, which is an AoE burst damage, and I'm getting cooldown reduction, which also has more damage on it. So now my multi-shot goes from 170, obviously this is baseline damage, 172, to 40% more damage, which is a nice chunk, to now adding an extra 120 damage on those grenades to the end of it. And if you get some type of shotgun spread, sure. But now all of a sudden, my multi-shot is hitting for a hefty amount, more than a flame strike, more than all of that. So now you're starting to burst down not just one target, but it's a heck of a lot easier to hit multiple targets with my multi-shot. This is why this build has been good for so long. I get mana regen, I get more damage and cooldown reduction. There's so much value that goes into that as a Valla player. You're already doing good auto attack damage. I can tell you that much, is that you're already doing good auto attack damage. The idea that you need a lot of single target damage is kind of overshot. It's not bad. Again, I'm not saying the other builds are bad. I'm saying for the sake of consistency and how this goes, Arsenal's good. Death Dealer, if you went Caltrops, I think is a very safe bet. Arsenal can still be good. Repeating Arrow, if you went Q build, is the clear choice. Now at level 10, if you're going Strafe, it better be for a pretty good reason. If I'm going Rain of Vengeance, this is the talent to pick. I get 2 charges of this. I can interrupt ETC. I can stop a Garrosh from running at my team. I can slow down multiple melees hitting me. I can set up my own kills. I can Q, W, E, and then onto that target R and get the auto attack in, which also means that I get the burst damage from my hatred from my vault. Plus I'm getting burst damage from my abilities, plus I'm now locking that target into place. You can even do it in reverse order. There's a lot of different ways to utilize Rain of Vengeance. Now, Rain of Vengeance should be like 90 to 95, probably 95 to 98% of your picks. When to use Strafe? If I'm going against a Tracer, I want to use my abilities, and I can trade with her. If I have a pocket healer, I can trade with that. Tracer, a good Tracer will kill you anyways. Or they'll just switch to your healer, and that's Monka. Strafe. If you are using Strafe, you have one job and one job only. Use all of your abilities first. If I just get dove upon and I press R, I'm leaving hundreds of damage just sitting there doing nothing. So if I'm playing Valla and somebody instantly dives my team and I just press R, that's really bad. That is leaving hundreds and hundreds of damage that are just non-existent in a team fight because I'm just hitting R. You need to press all of your buttons before you press R. I get it if there's like a, ooh, maybe this is going to be the one that kills it. Maybe I don't get this auto. But if you're not getting your multi-shot and your Hungering Arrow out, there better be very certain circumstances where you go Strafe. Else, you need to use your abilities before you use Strafe. I can't stress that enough. If you just raw R, you're not doing enough damage. I'm sorry, it's bad. So there is some things you can do because you can vault while you're using this. So you can save your vault technically for your R. But if you need to use your W and your Q. That's the main thing. Rain of Vengeance, set up kills, interrupt tanks, slow down engagements, hit multiple targets, hit them in choke points. Rain of Vengeance has so much utility. It does a decent amount of damage considering you have 2 charges. Consider baseline. This is 500 damage on 2 charges. And that makes it very good. Also, the charge cooldown on a 50-second cooldown, so you might not have 2 charges up at once. If you are playing against an ETC, it is your responsibility to always have 1 charge up if you haven't seen Mosh in the last minute or so. If you use both charges, and I'm an ETC player, I'm owning you because I just watched you try and double R for a kill, and now I know you don't have an interrupt. So as an ETC player, these are things I watch out for. As a Valla player, I have to respect that ETC has a mosh pit. Don't use both charges unless you have a guaranteed kill. Not you think you have a kill, but I'm talking about 100% guaranteed. Or you know that mosh has recently been used. Because if you use it, mosh is there, good luck. Because now you might be able to dodge it with your movement speed from hatred, but your team's going to die, and that's your fault. That is 100% your fault. So now we move on to 13, where she has amazing talents. For all intents and purposes, Gloom is probably the best choice here. You're going to have 20 spell armor. Passive 20 spell armor. For somebody that's really squishy, this is really good. Most games I'm playing against a lot of people that have spell damage. Even auto attackers have spell damage. This can be good. Now, one thing that works is that I also get 3 spell armor per hatred consumed for 5 seconds. So I can now utilize my 10 stacks of hatred, get an extra 30 spell armor, be it 50% spell armor, and that means that I'm taking a lot less damage. This is very good against most mage damage dealers. It's incredible versus a Kel'Thas Pyroblast. It's great against Kel'Thas in general because your team's probably going to spread fire. There's so many utilizations to Gloom. Not just the 20 passive armor, but the ability to get more spell armor. That is what separates this talent away from the rest that isn't activatable. Passively, you'll always have 20, but you can also activate this for more. You do drop hatred, which means you drop some damage, but these are things you have to play around. Tempered by discipline. If I'm going against some auto attackers or if I'm building into certain builds, I actually don't mind tempered by discipline. This is far more consistent healing. It's similar to, say, hammer gains, except it's better. But this does require you to be at 10 stacks of hatred. So building up early on in a fight, or somebody's diving you and you haven't auto attacked in a while, you're not going to heal. So that does make it difficult. Siphoning Arrow, you heal for percent of the damage dealt. This is normally reserved for if you go Q build, so I'm not going to talk about this one too much, but Gloom, really good for a squishy hero. Tempered by discipline, something you should definitely play around and utilize this if the circumstances are right, and Siphoning Arrow if you went Q build. Here's another difficult talent tier, because all of you are going to tell me that everything is good here. And the truth of the matter is I can't argue with that. Every talent here is good. Every talent here is good. Now, if I'm going against the Diablo, if I'm going against the Garage, if I'm going against the Cho'Gall, if I'm going against a Muradin even, Manticore is really good. 5% of damage, and you get an indicator underneath their health bar if you have that, because this lasts for a long time. So even if I switch targets, that still stays there. So if somebody moves out, if they come back, I'm still going to do more damage. That's not to say it's the every game pick. Why? Because Frost Shot is really good. Increases the range of multi-shot by 20%, and it slows for 1.5 seconds, which is great utility. Let's talk about the range aspect of this, because now I have 20% increased range. Let's do a quick rewind, because Arsenal says I get cooldown reduction the more targets I hit. Level 4 says I do more damage based on how much hatred I have. So if I have now max hatred, I can hit the back line much easier now because I have extra range, and I get cooldown reduction from my grenades hitting. This 16 talent now seems pretty good. All of this seems really good. Seething Hatred, they added it to where it adds spell power. This used to only give you extra stacks of hatred. Now it gives you extra spell power while you're at 10% or 10 stacks. This is good for Q build. This can also be good for standard build. This can be good literally everywhere, because now it's easier to stack my hatred, which for what it's worth, you shouldn't have to worry about too much. But the extra spell power means more burst damage. Against if I'm going against an Uther, burst damage, not that great. If I'm going against Uther, more consistent damage like Manticore is going to make it a lot difficult if I'm auto-attacking everybody. This is really good for your tanks and blasting people, even your bruisers you can hit. Seething Hatred can be really good with Q build. I would advocate that's probably better, but it's good with every build. Frost Shot, good with basically every build. Why? Because it has a slow in it, and it has extra range, which if I went into W build, now becomes even more valuable post 16. If I didn't go into W build and I did go auto attack, I would highly consider going into Manticore or Seething Hatred. Seething Hatred gives you more burst damage. Manticore just means that you get extra auto attack damage by way of percent damage, and therefore your 4 and 7 talents don't really matter unless you're getting resets off Death Dealer. So I think all of these are good. I'm just going to brush over them in that regard. I do think Frost Shot is really good. If you're going the standard build of Hot Pursuit into Punishment, into Arsenal, which I highly advocate for, into Frost Shot, it means that you're going to be kind of that in between. Because your base kit does a lot of damage, you don't necessarily need a lot of singular damage in auto attacks or singular damage in your Q. Your role is to continually poke down with max hatred, the front line if need be, step up where you can, and then deliver a punch with your buffed up abilities that come generally by way of your W. Now, level 20, I'm not a big fan of Storm of Vengeance. I know this is picked if people go Reign of Vengeance, but I'm not a huge fan of Storm of Vengeance. I don't actually mind it reducing my cooldown of Reign of Vengeance for every auto attack. The reason I don't like this is because most fights post level 20, I'm going in with 2 charges anyways. If I'm fighting before a level 20 fight, something crazy's happened. So Reign of Vengeance upgrade now says that something has happened, but I should go in with 2 charges. I don't normally need more than 2 charges going into a fight. There's very little that's going to happen to where it's going to outweigh the other talents. I don't need that much CC. And in between fights, there are very long times between the fights. And so Storm of Vengeance, I think, because most fights happen fast, they're explosive past level 20, I'm not relying on a long game, right? Yeah, I'd have to get 10 auto attacks out to get another charge on this. I'm using my R in that way. Yes, it can work. It's not terrible. But when I look at the alternatives of Farflight Quiver, Farflight Quiver gives me an extra 2.2 auto attack range. This is an astronomical amount for a hero like Valla. Now, it is a little counterintuitive towards Frost Shot, but it can also play into Frost Shot. I can kite better. I can kite targets better. I can A-move up and down. I can A-move backwards, or I can move forward and now start to attack any squishies that come forward. Plus, I can also hit them with my W. So Farflight Quiver gives you the capability to make more plays, more than, say, Rancor, more than Storm of Vengeance. I can move forward and attack squishies and hit them with my W, with my Frost Shot and everything that's built into that. I can move backwards and kite against a very aggressive team. I should be very difficult to kill post level 20. I should already be difficult to kill because I have movement speed. But at this point, I should be very difficult to kill because I'm hard to hit. I have movement speed. I have range. You shouldn't be on top of me unless you're like a flanking Zeratul or a Genji or full YOLO like Falling Sword Johanna or Samuro. I should be okay. If that comes into play, Rancor does play into Tempered by Discipline if you went down that route. I don't think Rancor is bad, but you're definitely reaching if you think that you're going to keep this up and then also be able to manage your A moves and do that. I don't think for most people your mechanical ability is as good as you think it is. And even then, if it was great, Farflight Quiver is generally better anyways. So Farflight Quiver gives you the range, gives you the ability to kite forward and backwards. Rancor, I think in very certain circumstances, if I'm hitting 20 right as we're ending the game, my range doesn't matter. If I'm hitting 20 and I just wipe the enemy team and I'm running to the core, you best believe I'm picking Rancor. I am going to just sit there and be like, I'm sitting on this core until it dies. Extra range doesn't give me that, but extra attack speed sure does. So a lot of that does help out a lot. I think as a result, Rancor kind of falls behind Farflight Quiver in terms of consistency. Rancor is more situational of what I need. And I know a lot of people like, this is the sexy talent because it means more attack speed. Watch me A-move. Watch me, do all this really cool stuff. But I promise you, Farflight Quiver will allow you more playmaking potential from a safer distance. This allows you to do a lot more than you think you can, because now you can step up against squishies, you can kite better, you can move away from certain tanks, and you can poke them down. Imagine poking a Garrosh that wants to get on top of you, and you're just blasting him with Farflight Quiver and Manticore. Like, good luck, bro. Like, I'm back here. You're never getting to me. I should never let you get to me at that point. So because of that, that's all there. Now, if I did go Strafe, which again should be less than 5% of the time, let's say I'm going against a kind of heavy dive team and I'm going against a Tracer, for example. First off, if you're going against the Tracer, Gloom is your choice, because now I just activate this. I trade with her. If she wants to hit me with Pulse, she can't trade forever, so she has to Pulse Bomb me and recall. I hit my Gloom, boom, 50 spell armor, I'm alive, right? That's the difference between being alive and being dead. So there is a lot of utility. It's kind of hard to cover all of the different unique circumstances that Valla comes into play. She's listed as an easy hero, and for what it's worth, she's very easy to just go out there, auto attack, and press your buttons. You got to be A moving. You got to utilize your movement speed from your hatred. You've got to do all the different things. With the auto attack, the caltrops, even if you go caltrops, I don't think you have to go Creed of the Hunter. You should probably still go punishment. And Death Dealer. Don't forget that Death Dealer also works on minions. So I can hit a minion, I can hit a minion, and then it resets, and then I can hit another minion. It's one, and I can do this on basically anything. If this attack kills its victim, and this is one of the rare times, I don't know if they ever use the word victim in any other way, but victim is kind of a weird thing to use because you get resets on basically everything for this. So you can utilize this on siege. You can utilize this on minions. Like all the different mercs that are out there, you can use it on. So there's a lot you can do with Death Dealer. This puts down caltrops behind you. You can use this for mobility. This is where some of the pog plays come in. I have movement speed, but they're kind of out of range. I can now vault forward, kill a minion if it's killable, and then vault forward again, and now I've closed that gap. Furthermore, I can also use the exact same thing for retreat. There's a lot of different things to do with Death Dealer. Gauging when you're going to have that kill with that extra damage from the stack is a little difficult. Again, if you're not going into caltrops, I don't recommend Death Dealer. Arsenal, punishment, all just fantastic abilities. There are different cases for every single one. The problem that I have is whether it's all the way up from the gold smurf that I'm playing on all the way up to masters. A lot of people see the sexy talents of caltrops, of Creed of the Hunter, and Death Dealer, and they never quite get there. Yeah, you might do a lot of single target damage, but is that what you need for your team? Do I already have, if I have a Jaina, right, I might consider going more into single target damage, but I'm still going to do it via Hot Pursuit, even Creed of the Hunter, because it takes so long to stack up. Even if you stack it fast, you're still doing single target damage. What healer do they have on the other side? What do I have? Again, because Valla has so much damage in her base kit from single target damage, from AoE damage with your multi-shot, and potentially single target damage with your Hungering Arrow, and additional damage if you vault an auto on single target, you don't necessarily need to specialize in one of those areas. I don't need to go Q build. I don't need to go auto attack build. I can bridge my damage across the W build. My Q and my autos are already doing enough, and things look a lot better because there's more damage weighted into punishment and weighted into multi-shot, and then of course into frost shot if I go that route. Things feel a heck of a lot better, and now I have damage spread out everywhere. It's above average damage in every single category because that's how Valla is built. And now things look good. It's only when you need more specific damage. Single target damage against, say, a Lucio looks a lot better, or a Stukov looks a lot better. Not that you have to, but do I have single target? If I somehow went Greymane Valla, do I need single target damage? Probably not. Therefore, multi-shot comes in a lot better. And most of the time, 80% of the time, I'd say multi-shot build is the way to go. But I also need to think about that. If I blindly go caltrops, Creed of the Hunter, and Death Dealer, it's been the sexy build for a while now. But I think we got to start taking our blinders off and start looking around at our team, at the enemy team, and start realizing that this OG build that's been around for what seems like years is still the most consistent one you'll ever find. And it's still really good. Reign of Vengeance, really good. All of these are situational, mostly between these two. These are situational, and this is your number one pick. So a lot of your main choices come between levels 1 and 7, and that says a lot about a hero that can literally do everything. Mobility, attack, AoE damage, single target damage. All of those things for a hero that if you're new to the game, she's listed as easy, but mastering Valla on a whole nother level. So hopefully this kind of gives you some perspective on where Valla kind of, she's not a huge meta hero, mostly because of her hero pool or her health pool. It does make it a little scary because her health pool is so small. But if you're looking to get in and you really want to carry, pick this in the right moment. Don't pick it into a lot of blinds. Don't pick it up against a very aggressive team. Rainer's still really good by all things considered. This is a difficult hero to master. Therefore, if you mess up as Valla and you die early, you're in trouble. If I'm triple ranged and I have a solo tank, good luck and hope they don't pick on you. There's a lot of weaknesses to Valla, and all of it revolves around her health pool. Again, if I have a certain comp and the enemy team has a certain comp, I can change my build to get as much survivability as I can, whether I need movement speed, whether I need caltrops, whether I need different types of damage. I can find different ways to utilize that at 1, at 10, and at 13. I can also do more impact damage at 16 to adjust to what I need. So if you find yourself in a weird situation, put on your thinking cap, make sure that you adjust. Don't blindly pick Monster Hunter, Creed of the Hunter, and Arsenal. At that point, you're going full rainbow build, and that's pretty weird. But think about the synergies. Think about what works for you. And again, I know a lot of people, if you've made it to the end of the video, it's because you're looking to learn. And if you've made it to this video just so you can critique the video, look, everything is good with Valla. Everything is good in the right situation. But if you're blindly picking talents, you're doing it wrong. That's Valla, man.